Hey, everybody, welcome to a new episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. This is Joe. I'm not even supposed to be here today, and yet here I am. Joining me today, as always, we have Cody,
Hey.
and in the third chair tonight, we have Brett.
Howdy.
As usual, wanted to get things started by talking about maybe some interesting things we've been up to recently. Brett, haven't seen you in a minute. Let's start with you.
Uh I have I was trying to think of something I guess we've been we after we watched the last thing we watched, I think we were just the Mole season 2. We were kind of like looking around like for something new to start, and we ended up settling on rewatching Lost. So that's what we've been
Oh,
doing the last week or so. And that's been a lot of fun. I definitely, in rewatching it, some of the first time seeing it factor like isn't there anymore. It's kind of replaced by the, oh, I know what's happening and I'm excited for it factor. But I think it still is still amazing. But it's like some of the wow factor isn't there in the rewatch, but I'm still really enjoying it.
Have you rewatched it like since it first aired?
Uh, I think I did. Like, there was a point where like somewhere after the first season had, like, maybe like season 3 or something, I'd like started buying the seasons or whatever and like rewatched them at that point probably.
Oh, gotcha.
But I don't. It has been a while. It's probably been like at least 10 years since I've seen any of these episodes.
Wow.
So,
My wife and I watched it probably 3-ish years ago now. She had seen like the first several seasons, but had never seen the whole thing before.
mm,
And I will say that for me, I felt like a lot of the like later stuff actually played better on a rewatch than it did originally.
oh,
Like it was one of
interesting.
those things where like kind of knowing what happens and having any possible disappointment out of the way. Um, I felt like it was easier to just kind of like, accept everything and a lot of things actually worked better for me than they had originally.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, that'll be
Anything else?
interesting to see how that plays out.
Anything else you've been up to?
Not much. As far as like games, still playing through Elden Ring, which we'll be doing a review at some point soon, so I won't talk too much about that. But that's been the only real game that I've been playing. We I mean, I guess I could say we my birthday was this week, and so we
happy birthday.
Happy
Happy
birthday!
birthday.
Did you get a new microwave?
no, no, I didn't, unfortunately. Well, we did go as today we went and we watched a new Deadpool movie. So saying nothing at all about that.
That Taylor Swift cameo is crazy.
It was amazing, yes. But we also we had a really nice lunch and went to a small arcade here in the area. So it was a good day. It was fun.
Oh, nice.
Cody, what have you been up to?
Oh, not much. Whatever. Mostly,
All
I
right, moving on.
was
Let's
gonna
talk
say,
about what I've been
I
up
mentioned
to.
before, I think we restarted watching Lost with the kids, but we have been on like a month and a half break now, so it's not going well. But we're enjoying it more. We were actually having time to watch an episode, but we have been doing just kind of around the house stuff. We went to the pool a few times this week, but I guess I'll do my shout out for Pain this week. Pain, everybody, give it a shot. It is great. So I had tooth surgery less than a week ago, and it still hurts quite a bit, and I still get a little blood every once in a while. It's pretty fun. I got big pockets between my teeth, and they inserted some fake bone material that they're going to eventually build up and graft into a tooth in a year's time. Um,
You're scaring the
this
listeners, Cody.
I know it's been okay though. I actually have a pretty good pain tolerance, but it's
Uh,
been pretty good just
would
with
you
some
say that pain
Tylenol.
don't hurt?
I'd say don't hurt, but probably more pain don't hurt to me than most people, I would bet. And then apparently I jacked up my foot somehow too in the last 2 days. I'm not sure how, which is funny because it's the same foot as my wife's foot she just had surgery on. So now I'm like limping around the house and she's on crutches and a roller thing around the house.
That's a good
Uh,
husband of you to be having those sympathy pains.
Everything she gets done, I will get sympathy pains for. It's insane. I don't know. It's weird. Um, but tomorrow we're going to attempt to do the Shed Aquarium in Chicago. So hopefully that goes well for everyone. She rented a wheelchair for the day, so that'll be good. We got her sister in town and her kids and our kids. So 7 of us are going to go down to the old shed tomorrow and check that out. And then the day this drops, we're going to be up at Six Flags checking out Hurricane Harbor. We're going to do some water parking up there, and hopefully the weather's good and the lines aren't too long. And yeah, that's what we got coming up in the immediate here. So not really watching anything, and only really been playing Fallout 4 gaming wise. I have been reading a shit ton out of my book series though, Mistborn, which I really do enjoy that. Brett, have you read those?
I have listened to the audio books.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
headed
I
to
do.
the
I
end
really
of book
enjoy
2,
those.
but they're pretty
Okay.
good. So,
Yep.
yeah, what about you, Joe? What have you been up to besides, 37?
Been sucking a lot of dicks,
Yep.
but aside from that,
Oh, Joe, I told you when the guy's behind you and he puts it in you, that's not called sucking a dick.
uh, been part of some human centipedes. I don't know. I just wanted to mention two quick things. One is Alexis, my wife, and I have been catching up on season 3 of The Bear, which is on Hulu. All the episodes dropped, I think, almost a month ago now, but we rewatched season 2 before jumping into season 3. It's a great show. It's one of the most stressful shows I've ever seen in my life, but very well written, well acted. I think I've probably mentioned previous seasons on this podcast before. It's also highly acclaimed, so I don't need to, try to give it any attention it doesn't already have. But this season actually has had some mixed reviews, but so far I'm really liking it. So I don't know what the mixed reaction is about. The Bear on Hulu. The other thing I wanted to mention, I think I said last time I was on that I've been replaying one of my favorite games of all time, which is The Elder Scrolls 4: Oblivion. Oblivion is a completely different thing, but I didn't want to shout that game out again so much as I wanted to shout out something which is the antithesis to a episode that is probably coming soon that I think Brett is going to be part of about Elden Ring. And I wanted to give a shout out to turning down the difficulty setting on video games. Historically, I've never been a person who feels like I need to beat a game on hard mode, but I always go for, whatever the normal, like middle of the road difficulty setting is. But over the past year or so, I've kind of come around to if, things are a little hard and I just want to kind of get through a game, turn the difficulty down a little bit. We're not getting any younger. I don't have time to like bash my head against the wall unnecessarily repeatedly.
Yeah.
And yeah, in playing Oblivion, it's kind of cool because they actually have like a full-on slider for the difficulty level.
Oh.
So it's not just, like easy, normal, hard. Like there's an entire spectrum that you can set. So I found myself recently just sliding it just a little bit to the left of the center, just to make it a little bit easier. And I have to say, it's made the experience more enjoyable. So you don't have to hurt yourself while playing video games.
I do like that option at least being there.
Yeah. I mean, what's your
can I
thought,
just
Cody?
tangent off that for a second?
Yeah.
So, like, before I went to Japan, I found a weapon in Fallout 4, and it's like this. Neither of you played 4, is that right? I forget who played what.
Oh, I played 4. I think I played through it
I have
twice.
not.
All right,
I
so
mean, it's
Joe,
been a long time,
you
but
may recall there's like a part that's in like a mine where you go underwater, and then under the water there's like a tunnel you can go down, and there's like an altar under the water. And you can grab this like sword called like somebody's tooth or something. It's like this chunk of metal, and it's like so fucking strong.
is it Cody's tooth?
I don't really use guns in the game anymore. Like
That's
I think
crazy.
it like broke the game. I just run around with this melee weapon now, and I don't even have any of the melee power ups like for my perks. I'm just like Slice head off ghoul, hit robot, done, hit this thing. I mean, if it's
I'm
like a
not
huge
familiar with
beast
it.
in
That's
the
crazy.
distance, I'll
Yeah,
use some kind of explosive thing, but like it's weird. Now I just run around and sell ammo to like pay for other crap.
that's amazing.
I feel like I'm cheating though. Oh well.
I mean, in my Oblivion playthrough, after reducing the difficulty, again, just a little bit, it's like not super easy, but I've started using a lot of spells for combat, which I have not historically done, and I almost feel like I'm overpowered in that regard now because I could just like one shot kill most enemies with a fireball, but you know what? It's fun.
Also, do people actually craft in this game? Because I haven't crafted a single weapon yet this game.
I think it's a situation where there are people that get very into that. I personally never really spent much time on it, but
And that, and also, what was the other thing I was just going to say?
base building.
I did just like what's required and a little bit extra for that, but I haven't done the weapons. Oh crap, I forgot what the other thing was though. There's like another thing that clearly they're like, do this, and I'm like, oh, what is the VAT system? I've used that like never times.
What? You don't use the vet system?
No, it's like
It-
slow and clunky. What am I going to use it
That's
for?
the best to
but
target people's limbs and or heads to make them
it's
explode.
like adrenaline slow-mo mode.
Yeah, that's like one of the main gameplay features of the Fallout series.
Yeah, there's a ton of the perks that apply to that specific thing, but I'm like, I could just run up and chop these guys' arms off with two swings.
I mean, I guess
Yeah,
if you're that OP'd, you don't have to worry about it, but
yeah,
it's
I don't know
cool.
how it would work with a melee weapon anyway.
Yeah, that's
So,
fair. Yeah, I use VATS all the time, man,
Huh,
because
all right.
you can like literally shoot a gun out of an enemy's hand with it, or just shoot their hands and disable them.
Hmm.
There's all kinds of fun stuff.
I do like how I'm not to keep going on follow, but I do enjoy how hard the choices are on the perk charts, like to pick which one you want. I like that quite a bit.
Yeah, I didn't really love the perk system in Fallout 4, but again, I don't want to
There's a lot
keep
I'm not
talking.
using, but I feel like the ones I do want, I'm like, ooh, I want that one too, and I want that one too.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
anyway, why are we being so
Anyway,
uncouth tonight?
well, bunch of savages in this town.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get on to the main topic of tonight, which is we are all old, like so old.
C Pain reference from earlier.
Ugh. Cody had floated the idea of maybe looking at some movies that are turning 30 this year. And I happen to know off the top of my head that one of my favorite movies, question mark, of all time is turning 30 this October, and that is Kevin Smith's Clerks. Clerks. Cody, where's the quote?
What quote?
I don't know.
Oh, I want to, before you get into anything, I have to ask this question because this is the first thing I thought of when I thought of you when I rewatched this. Is it Clerks or is it Clerks period? The
Hmm.
title screen has
It has,
Clerks period, but the art
yeah,
for the movie has Clerks.
it has been stylized both ways. That is a
IMDb
good
has without,
question.
Rotten Tomatoes has without, but clearly the title screen has it.
That's true.
All right.
I think it is most often discussed without, but there's definitely
Let
a
us
period
discuss
inside.
Clerks bottom half of semicolon,
Yes, Clerks, period.
the
It's
lower
that time of
colon.
the month.
Ooh, no.
Well, before we get into our discussion of the actual movie Clerks, I wanted to kind of take a step back, as we are occasionally want to do, and talk about our experiences and feelings around Kevin Smith and the Viewisk universe, as it were, in general. I think I'm assuming, I mean, I know this is true of a lot of people that, I have been friends with over the years, but I feel like Kevin Smith and his Viewisk universe were kind of huge cultural milestones for a lot of people of our generation. Um, so what is your guys' experience with his works and or the man himself?
Well, um, I will say, because this came out obviously in 94. I didn't watch this till 2017. No, I'm joking.
It's like,
We
what?
I watched this for the first time in college, actually. So it was a few
Wow.
years after that. But I did feel like I was being exposed to like the in crowd or something when I watched this. Like there was something about this movie in particular.
What was this
Um,
the first Kevin Smith movie you saw?
yes.
Wow.
Yep. So they had a basically a movie marathon type thing, I want to say, in the TV room one weekend, and they showed, oh man, I think it'd be this and Mallrats and Chasing Amy would have been out by that point, I want to say, because I think
The
Dogma came
original
to,
Juicy trilogy.
yeah, I think Dogma came to theaters sometime after that. So I think it was those three. I don't know the year on Chasing Amy. But anyway, yeah, it was very different than other things I had seen. 97 Chasing even came out. So yeah, probably those three. Um, and that was kind of the exposure to it. So
I mean, I think
probably
Dogma was like 99. Dogma was definitely before you were in college.
was it? Okay, maybe that was included as well then.
Yeah, Dogma was
Um,
99.
and then I think when did Jay and Silent Bob come out? Was that
That
2000?
was 2001.
Yeah, that sounds right because when I was an RA in that would have been 2002, fall of 2002. I'd hosted a movie marathon with all five movies. We did one each night of the week in the TV room where I was at. So that's kind of how I exposed other people to these. But I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. He gets it.
Nice. Brad, how about you?
Uh, I was specifically about Clerks. I don't recall when the first time I saw it was. I definitely was pretty long after its release. I would say somewhere around like 2002, 2003, something or there, something like that, probably. I definitely had seen Mallrats and Dogma and Jay and Silent Bob before I'd seen Clerks. I could almost certainly say that. Um, and I don't even know like it was never one of those movies that felt like it was like some sort of like uh big cult hit for me specifically. I definitely knew people who like really loved the movie. But it wasn't one that like I watched and was like, oh, this is an instant classic for me.
Why
You
is he on this
Rogers,
podcast? Good
you Rogers
Lord.
City boys, my God. Oh boy. I guess I am apparently the biggest Clerks fan or longest time Clerks fan on this episode.
Tell us about it.
Oh boy. I think I've actually mentioned this on this podcast before. I forget how it would have come up, but I have a terrible memory in general. I have very few like
You
actual
just said that.
specific I what? I have like very few specific memories before I was in college, honestly. Like I just have like a terrible memory, but one of the specific memories I do have was I'm not sure if it was in like late 94. It was more likely 95 when Clerks came out on home video. But like is right after it came out on VHS, I remember my older brother renting it from our local video store and him asking me if I wanted to watch this movie that like neither of us really knew anything about, but it was supposed to be like funny and it was this kind of underground thing. So we sat and watched it on VHS on probably like a 25-inch or smaller CRT television, as one did back in the day. And I mean, I was honestly probably too young to even get a lot of the jokes. I would have been like 11 or 12 at the time, but I just kind of instantly loved it. And I mean, it just kind of like immediately made me interested in, the people that made the movie. And so Kevin Smith was on my radar like pretty much from the beginning of his career. And I mean, I think Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was the first one of his movies that I actually saw at a theater, but I had definitely seen all of the other ones, within a reasonable window of them coming out on home video over the years. I'm gonna stand up for a second.
Oh,
I'm wearing
Nice.
a Jay and Silent Bob Secret Stash t-shirt, which is a comic book store in New Jersey that Kevin Smith owns, and I'm sad that this t-shirt is falling apart finally. I have had this since 2001. One of my friends in high school and I went to the Wizard World Con in Chicago in 2001, and Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes were there, and I bought three things at that convention: this t-shirt, an autographed, well, a Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back poster. This was like a month before the movie came out, which I got autographed by Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes in person, which that poster sadly subsequently got destroyed when my house in Marquette got flooded. And I also bought a little figure of the Buddy Christ, which I have mounted to the dashboard of every vehicle that I've owned since then. And it is
Nice.
still currently on my vehicle to this day. So, yeah, I mean, I have always been a pretty hardcore Kevin Smith fan. Admittedly, there are, I think, two of his movies now that I haven't seen, non-Askewniverse related. Tusk, which I just am not really into horror movies, and Yoga Hosers, which weirdly my wife has seen and I have not, but from what she's told me, I don't know if I ever need to watch it.
interesting.
Um, I mean, we can maybe talk about this later, but have you guys both seen either of the sequels to Clerks? Clerks 2 and or Clerks 3, which just came out in 2022, I think.
I've only seen part two.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen either one.
All right. We'll get to that in a minute. Well, let's get into Clerks itself. This was the directorial debut of Kevin Smith. Oh, I should also mention that I've actually seen Kevin Smith live doing Q&As on, I believe, two different occasions. Because in addition to making movies, over the past probably 20 years or so, I feel like he has become more of a personality than a filmmaker.
Yeah,
He has a bunch of podcasts. He does like live appearances. I think he's probably known at least just as much for being Kevin Smith at this point as he is for being a director and for playing the character of Silent Bob.
he does a lot of podcasts. As a matter of fact, let me pull the screen over to the side here. He's in character.
He's here right now, ladies and gentlemen. Silent Bob himself. Directorial debut, Kevin Smith, premiered at Sundance in 1994 to much acclaim. Got picked up and distributed by Miramax.
You're a Max.
I mean, there was a time, especially in the 90s, where Miramax was kind of a hot ticket for like indie films.
Yeah.
There are some unfortunate associations with Harvey Weinstein there, but that's not Kevin Smith's fault. It got picked up and distributed in October of that year. Rather famously, the budget for the movie was $27,575, which you can't make a movie for that little money. Like, even back then, that was like nothing.
Hmm.
Most of the budget of the movie, Kevin Smith actually raised by falsifying credit card applications.
Oh no.
Yeah,
What?
I mean, he told the story a bunch. He basically applied for a bunch of credit cards, lied and said that his salary was $50,000 a year and that he was a manager at the Quick Stop, and listed a number for the Quick Stop. And since he worked there all the time, if anyone called to verify, he would just pretend that he was his own manager, basically.
Amazing.
So yeah, he basically funded most of the movie by lying on credit card applications and then just maxing out those credit cards.
That
See,
could have been
Justin has options.
that could have been the base plot of the whole movie.
Yeah,
That's
actually,
true. Yeah. I mean, honestly, like someone
know.
could make,
Yeah.
could, well, Cody, you said that there's a documentary called Clerk that's about the making of this. I don't
Yeah.
know. how deep into that they get, but
Good
I mean,
question.
I do honestly think that the making of this movie would be an interesting subject for a movie. It was shot on location at the Quick Stop, which was an actual convenience store that Kevin Smith worked at the time.
That's amazing.
Um, this is something that I actually just learned, which is kind of funny, is that the whole plot point of the shutters being locked and Dante not being able to open them, so he has to make the sign saying, "I assure you we're open." They basically made that up because they were only allowed to film at night. They were only able to film between the hours of 10:30 p.m. and 5 a.m. when the store is
Wow.
actually closed.
So the gates they had to be down.
So they had to have they basically came up with the thing of the shutters being locked so that they wouldn't have to like, I mean, A, because they would be locked because the store is closed, and B, because then they could have daytime scenes and not have like, not have people wonder why there's no actual daylight filtering through.
That's hilarious.
Um, Most of the cast of this movie were just Kevin Smith's friends and family. One of the only people who actually had acting experience is Brian O'Halloran, who plays Dante, the lead. He was like a local theater actor, but like most of the cast are Kevin Smith's friends. His sister appears at one point. The character of Randall, apparently Kevin Smith actually wrote for himself originally,
Hmm.
but once they actually started to get into production, he realized that because he was still working at the Quick Stop, so he was like working a day shift at the Quick Stop and then trying to like direct and act in this movie at night, and he realized that trying to play one of the lead characters was just too much. So Jeff Anderson, who ended up playing Randall, apparently was just like one of his friends, like a guy he knew that he thought would be a good fit for the character, even though he had no acting experience. So it really, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a weird small miracle that this movie came together at all. And then for it to be such a like small, low budget project, for it to A, get shown at Sundance was a huge thing, and then B, to actually get picked up. Um, it ended up grossing $4.4 million at the box office during its initial release, which is nothing, but also compared to a $27,000 budget is kind of remarkable.
It's
Amazing.
just enough to pay
Um,
off the predatory loan amount for the credit cards that he had.
yeah, that's fair. All that
Interest rates.
interest. But yeah, it was this very just underground, low budget kind of, word of mouth thing. And um it gave us Kevin Smith and a whole series of movies. I don't really want to go through like a full-on plot summary. I don't know if we could even do a plot
Is
summary. This
there a plot
movie,
summary? I mean, that's a point to
that's
talk about, though, you know?
yeah, well, I mean, honestly, that's something that really, I mean, I've seen this movie, I don't even know how many times over the years, but it had been several years since I had watched it. And one thing that really struck me this time is that this isn't really a movie so much as it's like a series of vignettes. And I mean, structurally, it's even kind of broken up that way. There are kind of like title cards throughout the movie
Yeah.
introducing different scenes. I guess if there's one overarching plot point, it's that Dante sucks. Like, I feel like that's my main takeaway from the movie is that Dante is just kind of a coward and like kind of a shitty person, and maybe he learns some lessons by the end of the movie, but that's debatable.
Yeah, I think you say like the plot of the story is probably could be best described as like a character like journey, like
Yeah.
yeah, exploring the character a bit.
Yeah. Very, very little plot movement in this. I mean, it's literally just watching the day unfold, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, it is literally a day in the life. Like it starts, with Dante waking up in the morning and getting called into work, and then kind of follows him throughout just one entire singular day during which he was not even supposed to be there.
Rough, man. It's a rough day, too. Or
that was
is it a
interesting.
rough day?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, Cody, you said there's a lot of things to talk about. What are some things on your agenda here?
Well, I think I'm looking at. I didn't see a direct article on this, but I was basically trying to find some other people who also went back and re-examined this for the 30-year anniversary. And maybe it's because we're a month or two early here yet, but people that are watching this movie for the first time seem to really be like, well, nothing happens in this movie. Like, there's no plot to this movie. Like, what am I watching here? Why is it in black and white? Why is it so choppy? Like, that the actors can't act, well, all of which are true, but like this is really an exercise in dialogue, I feel like, more than anything, which has some pretty, whip crack fast dialogue, one-liners and conversations and exchanges and
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, I feel like this is kind of like Generation X, the movie, in a lot of ways. It's got this kind of attitude of like, are you wasting your life? Like, should you be doing something more fulfilling? I don't know, kind of it raises questions about kind of, the state of American capitalism, I feel like, versus like personal fulfillment that I feel like these are things that really started getting raised with Generation X. Before that, people were just kind of happy to go work their, 8 hours a day and go home and have their 2.5 children and picket fence.
yeah, I feel like this movie, if I showed this to like modern high school, early college students, I think they would look at this and be like, what the hell am I watching right now? Like, it would probably on the surface seem fairly unrelatable to them, but I don't know that like the topics explored in this are all that different. Just if you maybe substitute drug usage for like video gaming and like zoning out on the internet and things, social media, that type of thing. But I don't know that it's all that unapplicable to today's world. Like customers who come in the store in this movie are like, you're just a bunch of slackers, like what are you doing with your life basically? Like you have no respect for authority or your job or anything. And I kind of feel like people would say that to that age today as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think people do actively say that quite a bit. Yeah, I think a lot of it is it really is just people being like unhappy, like unfulfilled with their life, direction at the moment. And like that's a universal thing that's never going away, I don't think. Not
Yeah. I
in
mean,
our lifetimes.
I'll be honest, I'm kind of going through a bit of a career transition right now, and this movie kind of hit me like a ton of bricks watching it yesterday.
Hmm.
Um, because it does raise those questions about like, what are you doing? I mean, honestly, I felt kind of attacked with the sense that I've never been a particularly ambitious person. I've just kind of coasted through life. It's worked out pretty well for the most part for me, but there is this I mean, I think what kind of comes to a head toward the end of the movie is the fact that, Dante is kind of scared of life. He's scared to actually try and put himself out there in any way. And I'm that. So yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely themes that are kind of perennially relevant here. Um, and I mean, honestly, it's interesting to me. Kevin Smith was 24 when this movie came out, so he was probably 23 when they were actually making the movie. Like everyone in this movie, with like one or two exceptions, was younger when they made the movie than the movie itself is now, which is just crazy to think about. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess it's kind of ironic in a way that, Kevin Smith is making this movie about being stuck and not being able to like do anything fulfilling with your life, but this was him doing that. This was like him starting to break out of that and actually do something he wanted to do.
And at the same time, we're 30 years later and Kevin Smith is still making Clerks sequels. So
Well,
what
I
is
don't
he
want
doing
to
with his life
I
exactly?
don't want to spoil Clerks 3, but I don't think there'll be any more.
Uh-oh. Is
Dante
the
and Randall have a murder suicide at the end.
is the donkey in it?
Sadly, Kinky Kelly is not
Dang
in
it.
the in Clerks 3. Um, what else do you guys want to talk about with Clerks?
I was gonna say too, like how structurally this is set up. We have kind of the main two here, Randall and Dante, and then we have uh not even so many recurring characters beyond that. We have the girlfriend, I guess. Is it Veronica? Is that the
Veronica,
girlfriend? Yeah.
yeah,
And then we have Caitlin later on, but it's like their story is like interspersed with these. And I'm curious if he really worked at that place, like how many of these are based on real people, but these like quick, like 10 or 15-second little loony ass character stories that they will tell, like Egg Guy or the
yeah,
customers
the
asking stupid ass
milkmaid.
questions when they have the sign behind them, or
Oh,
um,
I mean, having worked in customer service for a
that's
number of
true.
years, I 1,000% believe that these are all like actual people that they've encountered.
It's like the wonderful, quirky characters they bring in just for that little bit, or somebody that they bring in for like this one line of dialogue. Like, just looking at the quotes on IMDb, and I remember from watching just yesterday the lady who's like, "It's important to have a job that makes a difference, boys. That's why I manually masturbate caged animals for artificial insemination." And
That
then
is
she like walks out. Like that's the whole time we
That's
see
the
that
end of it.
character.
Yeah.
that is Kevin Smith's sister
Well,
playing that character.
Nice.
Yeah, it's man, that's the thing. I mean, there are so many like again, I'm sure younger generations would have no idea what we're talking about, but there are lines from this movie that I have been quoting for the past 30 years.
yeah.
Um, like repeatedly throughout my life, I have said this job would be great if it wasn't for the fucking customers, which is true.
Yep.
The 37 thing, which you referenced earlier, like anytime I hear someone say the number 37, my mind immediately goes in a row.
Yep.
uh,
We used to, my roommate used to always shout Navy SEALs in college, so that was always
ooh,
stuck in my
Navy
head also.
SEALs.
Yep. I think that was even
Um,
like maybe like one of his like chat apps on his laptop might have said that whenever he got a message.
that's hilarious. What
Woo!
I wanted to ask what do you guys think about the performances in this movie, given the fact that most of these people are not actors? I mean, do you
Definitely.
think they work for the most part? Do you think they're believable as these people?
I think so. Yeah, there's like two sides of there. So they like very clearly, like many times through the movie, you're like watching, you're like, wow, that's, that's bad acting, or like just the line delivery is like odd, or but um, so you definitely get a sense that this is like not a like big budget produced movie. Uh, but I think they also like make it helps make the characters feel more believable at times as well, because they probably are. That's just how they talk. That's just a like normal person
Yeah.
speaking lines that are written on a page, you know. And so I think in that regard it actually helps the movie that that this is a movie where you've got just a whole bunch of characters who are just random ass everyday people, and so having random ass everyday people playing those roles makes a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would say there are moments where you feel like they're not actors, but because this is such a dialogue driven piece, I do feel like even if you took Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson and maybe Veronica, this Marilyn Gigliotti, and even Caitlin, Lisa Spoonhour was about the same, and Jason Mewes is okay too. But they're, I'd be curious behind the scenes, like I don't know if this is covered in the documentary or not, but like those characters run off some both extremely long chunks of dialogue and also some great timing off each other, which I mean, Jeff Anderson, I'm just pitching like his facial expressions were great if he's not an actor. Like he seemed
Yeah.
like a pissed off slacker guy who had like a rebuttal to anything Dante would say and like seemed very believable. But even like Veronica, like she, runs off these little monologues that were like 10, 15, 20 lines in a row. And like if they're not trained actors and actresses, it's pretty impressive what they got out of them, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I was thinking about it a lot. I've seen, I don't know if you guys get the same things on your Facebook timeline all the time because of the algorithm, but probably not. Several times now, I've had the same like cracked list appear on my Facebook thing, which is like 10 movies that were almost ruined by the central performance. And like the main image on this article is Brian O'Halloran in Clerks talking about how like he gives such a wooden performance that it almost derails the entire movie. And like I completely disagree with that. I think he's actually like perfect as Dante in this movie. However, I think what really struck me this time watching this movie is I think a lot of things that could be perceived as bad acting or like questionable acting is more the fault of Kevin Smith's dialogue as written. Like
Hmm.
it's not, I mean, again, there are a lot of iconic lines, a lot of iconic moments in this movie, but there were like multiple times watching it where like I felt like the actors were doing a fine job, but it just the dialogue just felt wrong. It's like people don't go on like soliloquies like that, like it just felt like their performance, their actual performance was believable, but like there were just times where I felt like the dialogue was maybe a little overwritten to where it just like didn't quite work. I don't know if you guys felt that at all.
Uh yeah, I had so to me it feels like the scripting is like watching Gilmore Girls, which I know you guys are really into too. And by that I mean that like everyone always has like some like really well-spoken monologue just like ready to
Hmm.
go.
Yeah, yeah,
Like they've been
exactly.
rehearsing it for weeks and weeks, just waiting for the right time to use it.
Yeah,
And
definitely. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, it's a bit like it like it's a bit weird. Like it's like takes you out of like the moment and you're like hold on, this is like it doesn't even though it like nothing else about the movie feels like it's supposed to be like realistic. They do kind of make you feel like that's really like not realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I get a little bit of that with Veronica and Randall in particular. It's interesting, you said Dante was the only one who was like a trained actor before this, because now that I'm looking at like the main five, I'm like, he might give the worst performance out of the five. That's kind of interesting. But that might be, like you said, maybe how he's delivering the lines, or maybe he needs to be like, quote unquote, the straight man so that the other four can play off of him. Maybe that's just
I
needed. I
think
don't
that's
know.
really what it is. I mean, when I say he's perfect as Dante, I mean, again, Dante kind of sucks. Like he is this kind of like whiny man baby. And I feel like Brian O'Halloran captures that perfectly. I mean, again, at the end of this movie, he's kind of talking about how he talks about how when he was a baby, he had to poop and he was too late. The lid to the toilet was closed and he was too lazy to open it. So he just shit his pants. Like he's this like ineffectual, just like man child who's afraid of everything. Like he's someone who just lets life happen at him. And like, I mean, I think that is a point. I think he is the straight man and that, everyone around him is supposed to be, more kind of comedic and more performative.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that as well. Like everybody else is supposed to be like absolutely insane. Like
Yeah, exactly.
and he's just reacting to everything like what the hell is wrong with these people?
Yeah.
Yeah, specifically about that, like you mentioned a couple times now, just the fact that like Dante's is just like kind of a lame person, and for me, that's probably one of the hardest things for me to get past is that the two characters in the movie that you see by far the most are my least likable characters in the movie. Like
Hmm.
I wouldn't enjoy uh like being friends with them or like spending a lot of time with them because I just be like okay, like let's get over your stuff or like try and but because like everything is just like I say it's like is a whiny like opinions that they like is angry at everything but like doesn't do anything about it and just likes to talk about it. And then like
Fine, Brett. I
Randall,
don't want to be friends with you anyway.
not you. Um, and like Randall is just like he's the kind of person who just like makes everyone else's life more difficult so that he can feel something somewhat better about his own. That just like pisses me off. So like that character would I would really struggle with that character in real
Yeah,
life.
that's a good point, actually. I mean, I love Randall, and I mean, I do feel like Jeff Anderson, in a lot of ways, is kind of the MVP of this movie.
There's
But you're
a
right.
lot of comedic parts there, a lot of funny
Yeah,
lines,
yeah,
but the character itself is awful.
yeah, he is like a terrible dude. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, you're right. Like, he's basically spends the movie belittling everyone else to try to make himself feel better. Um, which, man, I mean, again, like at 23 years old, for Kevin Smith to, like, see that these are people that are inhabiting the world and see through that kind of bullshit. That's, I don't know, it's interesting to me. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I've talked about this. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned it on this podcast, but it's something that like my wife and I talk about a lot, specifically with regard to TV shows. I feel like in a lot of media, even if it's something I enjoy, like the main character is the worst. And it's just like the supporting cast. I mean, even Lost, like, I'm sorry, but Jack and Kate are fucking awful, especially by the further you get into that show, they're just like insufferable.
How dare you?
Or like, what I used to be a big fan of the show How I Met Your Mother, and the main character of that show is like the most annoying and just like worst character ever created. But like the supporting cast makes up for it. So it's, I mean, I
Yeah,
agree with you. Like,
I
but
think there's something to be said to that idea, honestly. Um, I don't know. Is that trying to think of like be an interesting podcast if we actually could put enough time into that, but like could we analyze lead characters in different series? Are there enough that actually work, or is that just like the flaw of the main character being in something? Like, are they always going to be painted as the most, you know?
yeah, well, that's a good question. I
Hmm.
mean, that is a good, that would be an interesting thing to interrogate. I mean, I think in a lot of shows, I mean, first of all, you're spending the most time with that character, so they have the most time to annoy you.
That's true.
Also, like oftentimes the main character is kind of like the straight person. I, I think by design, a lot of like supporting characters tend to be more kind of like zany or like more interesting in different ways. So you're kind of drawn more toward them. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean,
The
that would
main
be
character,
interesting.
like typically your main characters have to go on like some sort of journey through the whatever you're watching. Otherwise, it's not terribly interesting usually,
Yeah.
unless you got something else big to support that. So by default, the main character has to be flawed in some way, usually.
That's interesting. Yeah. Anything we watch, like my daughter's favorite character is always like the quirky character that was on screen for like 5 minutes of the movie or less than. She's like, that was the best character. And I was like, they were barely even in the movie. But I guess that's kind of what we're saying here, maybe. I don't know.
She can sense their rich inner life.
She can. So, if you guys were in a darkened bathroom, um,
Oh, I'm sitting on that hard cock.
would you just assume that your boyfriend somehow beat you into the bathroom, had gotten his pants off, and was laying naked on the floor waiting for you? I guess so. I don't know.
Your boyfriend who, because like Caitlin talks to Randall before she goes in the bathroom,
Yeah,
and he tells her that Dante had like gone home to change for their big date or whatever.
yeah,
So why would he just make that up and be lying if he knew that Dante was in the bathroom waiting? Like, it makes no sense.
It's a very strange plot point. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. I do love how they like plant that seed earlier in the movie with the old guy wanting the porno mag to go to the
yeah.
bathroom.
We
And
just
then,
forget about
it's
him. Yeah.
yeah, you just gotta like
But
everyone
like,
forgets about him. Like it's a while later that the Caitlyn scene happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's really no different than any other characters. Like they just
Yeah,
come in and like buy something and they're gone. So it's
like
like
they're here, they're
you don't even
wacky,
think
they're
about
out.
Yeah,
it.
Could have used
yeah.
more Chuli as representative though, but what can you do?
Uh, Truly is. You know, what else? What else? What other thoughts or what other things you guys want to discuss regarding the classic motion picture Clerks?
A couple things I thought of here. One, I mean, obviously the time period that this was made in was artistic to do this in black and white. So, how do you think that decision has held up over the years? Do you think it was the right call for then? Like, why
I mean,
ultimately
I
did he
don't think
choose that?
I think it was I think it was a couple things. One, I believe it was cheaper to shoot in black and white than to buy color film. Two, I think I heard somewhere I have I've done zero research for this episode. Um, but you know, again, I've been a long time fan. I feel like I heard somewhere that one of the part of the idea is that it's like watching security camera footage almost because that at least used to always be black and white. So it's just kind of capturing that feeling of like, you know, fly on the wall in a convenience store.
Okay.
Could see that. Yeah,
But I think,
I definitely think it probably was uh like I would I mean we have some firsthand experience with that video cameras of that time where like just a home camera, like the colors don't come out great, especially if the lighting is not good. So, but black and white is always black and white. And so like a low quality camera, which is almost certainly what they had, um, like the colors probably would have looked pretty poor if they would filmed it all in color.
yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, did you guys both watch this on Netflix
Yes.
or
Yeah, I
I
mean,
did
most
too?
recently, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's the Netflix stream is, you know, high definition, but like it doesn't look good. Like just in terms of the actual like quality of the image, it does not look good. And I think that's a great point, Brett, is if it was in color, it would look even worse. But
Likely, yeah.
yeah, like but being in black and white, you can kind of write it off to like, you know, oh, and the poor video quality maybe even ties even more into the like video camera idea,
Mhm.
Well,
the
I thought
studio
it
camera
looked
thing.
quite fine on my 5.5 to 6 inch screen that I watched it on. So, Um, so the thing I was going to say, oh, I think that's also worth mentioning here. I mean, I don't know what Kevin Smith's intentions were past this. I'm guessing based on stuff we talked about today, he was probably just living by the seat of his pants and hoping that this was any kind of success to get his money back and maybe make a film in the process. But inadvertently, he does launch Jay and Silent Bob in this movie as cultural icons themselves. So I guess, do you think their role in this movie is such that they had to continue on into future films, or do you think that they did enough in this film to like be as famous as they became from this? Or, and obviously he's playing the role, so he comes back in Mallrats with these same two characters. It's kind of a connected universe story, and we get some overlap with characters mentioned here and there. But I mean, what is it about these two guys, I guess, that I'm saying like their characters that like has made them so famous 30 years down the road?
It's an interesting thought because like just taking a look at what these characters are, like it's drug dealers sitting outside of
Yeah.
a convenience store. Um, like they shouldn't really be likable characters, but they, at least for me, are by far the most likable characters in the movie. Um, and like it, it, obviously Kevin Smith says, what does he have, like two or three lines in this whole movie, as he does with basically all of those movies. Um, so like, but he still has like he's able to come off as like this like charismatic character that you like just with these facial expressions and things. And then Jay Muse has like this really interesting ability. Like the character he's playing is like another character that I feel like I would not should not like in real life. Like I would just find this person so annoying. But there's something about him as a person and his delivery of things that makes it really just you just love the guy. And I don't know what it is exactly, but it's some sort of like weird fine line that he's managed to find himself in this zone.
Yeah, I mean, I think in Clerks, maybe even more so than in the later movies, like this is just Jason Mewes. Like he's just being himself. I mean, like I mean, Kevin Smith has said as much. Like it was just because Jason Mewes, I think is like 4 years younger than Kevin Smith, and
Oh
he was
wow.
just this like kid that Kevin Smith met at a local rec center and just thought he was hilarious just because he acted like this all the time. Um, but I mean, Brad, I think you were kind of hitting on like it does feel like there's some kind of depth to him. I mean, again, I've listened to a lot of Kevin Smith podcasts and like seen him and stuff. And one thing that I've often heard him say about Jason Mewes is that he's got a nickel head and $1 million heart. Like he's this kind of like he comes off as this kind of like brash, like dumb drug dealer guy, but um, you feel like underneath that, like maybe he's an all right person. Like he's not coming at it from a place of being like, a shitty person.
Mm.
Um, and then the Silent Bob character, I mean, starting with this movie, there becomes a trend of, him kind of like, if not summarizing the point of the movie, he inevitably toward the end of the movie has, like one or two lines of dialogue that it's kind of like makes all the difference.
It's
It's kind of like
meaningful. It's like the lesson learned.
yeah, kind of like the
Yeah.
emotional like culmination of the movie. There's a million fine looking women in the world, but not all of them bring you lasagna at work. Um, I mean, as far as like whether enough happens in this movie for them to get the iconic status that they have, I don't know. I mean, I do think audiences responded well to them, but I also think that Kevin Smith just wanted to continue putting Jason Mewes in his movies because he liked him, and that's like one of the main reasons for it. I did actually read something today that I thought was interesting, which if you look at the poster for Clerks, you'll see that Jason Mewes is not on it, even though Kevin Smith is.
Hmm.
Apparently, Jason Mewes did not appear in any promotional images for the movie because the studio executives thought that he would be too off-putting.
Interesting.
They thought that he would drive prospective audiences away rather than like appeal to people. So they insisted that he not actually appear in any of the promotional material for the movie,
Interesting.
which is kind of hilarious because again, like Jay and Silent Bob, went on to have two movies of their own and feature in like pretty much all of Kevin Smith's other movies.
That's interesting. Kevin Smith himself on the poster doesn't really look like he's in
Yeah,
the.
doesn't he have glasses?
He doesn't
Like it
have. He
looks
does
like
have glasses, but he looks like very
oh,
like thoughtful and like he has like a
yeah, it kind of just
type.
looks like Kevin
Yeah.
Smith more than the actual character of Silent Bob.
Right. It looks like the character he was supposed to play before they changed his
Yeah.
role to Silent Bob.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I guess quickly worth noting, largely due to budgetary factors, multiple people played multiple characters in this movie, including Kevin Smith's longtime friend Walt Flanagan, who he nicknamed the Lon Chaney of the 90s, who appears as multiple characters, including the guidance counselor who's trying to find the perfect dozen eggs.
Eggman. Yeah.
I think he plays at least four different characters in this movie.
Nice.
Um, one thing that I don't know how I never clocked this before, I watched it last night, is that so Kevin Smith's longtime producer and film school buddy Scott Mosier, um, who most famously plays Willem, aka Snowball, in this movie, also plays the douchey customer who challenges them in their hockey game. Which I never realized that was him before for some reason, but
Wow. Yeah.
they must have filmed that after the Willem stuff because he doesn't have a beard at that point.
Yeah. That he looks like way more jocular.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
gonna
he's
make
got
that word
like
up.
he's got
Jocular.
like kind of like long hair and he's clean shaven and he looks like more douchey jockey for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's I don't know. In a lot of ways, it's just kind of the little movie that could.
Um, I see on the trivia here for IMDb too, it says this is loosely based on the Divine Comedy by Dante. Hence the name of the protagonist. Also, if you pay attention, there's 9 breaks in the movie with title cards to represent the 9 rings of hell.
That makes sense. I was gonna say I feel like the title cards play
Hmm.
into that.
I don't know. I've never even tried to break it down with that, and there's no like source for that. It's just something that's listed on here, but really interesting idea. I don't know if the 9 sections would match up with the 9 circles of hell. I don't know. I mean, he feels like he's in hell, so I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. How did you guys feel about the title cards?
I mean, the words themselves, I think I just took as like whatever, because a few of them seemed more noticeably applicable. A few of them seemed like he was trying to be like crazy art student who was trying to put something on a card to look fancy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's, I mean, I feel like more so than in the past, it struck me that way this time. Like, it just kind of felt pretentious, like he's trying to be an artsy filmmaker rather than it really serving a purpose. I mean, the Divine Comedy thing, I guess, makes it feel like it might work a little better, but I don't know if if it was clearer that that was the intention, maybe it would work more, but I kind of felt like it kind of just like grated on me after a while, honestly, on this most recent viewing.
I feel like the use in general I like it's a fun kind of feature to have in film.
Yes,
But I don't know that it, like you saying, Cody, I don't know that it really. I think I would have to watch it again and like focus on like what's happening because they didn't feel like they really were like the movie wasn't
No.
segmented enough in like the theming during those
Yeah.
bits to maybe go, oh yeah, definitely that fits whatever that title card
I
said.
will I will give you a movie that uses title cards like this perfectly, which is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
oh, I was gonna say the Hateful
Mm,
Eight, but okay.
Like that
yes.
movie, spoiler alert, it uses the three parts of the title, Everything Everywhere All at Once, but the way that it employs those title cards in the movie is like absolute perfection and like
Yes, I agree.
like it makes sense and adds to the movie. Like it actually works as part of the structure.
Yeah,
Whereas
and only
here,
three, sorry, but
yeah,
like only three is much more easier to digest as well.
yeah, and that's true too. Like, you know, in Clerks, it's just after a while, it's like, okay, I get it. Like, I guess it kind of serves as a way to, you know, break up some of the vignettes, but I didn't feel like it necessarily adds much.
Totally would agree, and I'm a big fan of movies that have chapter titles that come up on the screen. I was just mentioning Hateful Eight in there as well, another really fun one with title cards.
Well, speaking of big black dinguses,
Yes, not in this film.
it's true.
Um,
Um, all right. Any other thoughts about Clerks?
I just wanted to say that it had been a while since I saw the movie, and I'm reading some comments here, budgetary wise, talking about this, but I was really kind of taken aback when I heard like Alice in Chains come on and Bad Religion come on and some other bands there. And I think there's a cover of Go Your Own Way on here I see by a different
There
band.
is.
Apparently Stabbing Westward's in here too, Brett, which I didn't even catch.
Oh no, well, yeah, I didn't.
Violent
Huh.
Mood Swings, Thread Mix, performed by Stabbing Westward. So I totally missed that one, but
Chewbacca, what a Wookiee.
Hmm.
Soul Asylum, yeah, it definitely was like at least the Bad Religion and the Alice in Chains, and Alice in Chains was on. I was like, what? What is happening right now? Like, how?
It's very, yeah, time period.
Yeah.
You think that the soundtrack alone would put them over that $20,000 budget?
I mean, this is probably before a lot of those bands really hit it big, honestly,
That
but
was a
Mhm.
note I saw in here. It said they spent more on music rights than they did the rest of the film. Everything
Well,
together.
yeah. I mean, honestly, on a similar note, I don't know how product placement works in movies. But because
Just
of the fact that they filmed this in an actual convenience store, I mean, you see a lot of like actual brand name products at various points in the movie.
Yep, like Playboy.
Yeah, like I mean, sure, but also like Pringles and like different food things and like real cigarette brands. And like usually, I don't know if it's that. I mean, I think these days you usually only see like actual products if that company is paying like to have them promote the product in the movie. But there's a lot of brands that just got like free advertisement in this movie for the fact that it was actually filmed in a convenience store that just stocked all these products. That's kind of weird.
yeah, I don't know. As if you go on foodaskueforyou.com, you can actually buy packs of Chulis,
That's awesome.
have them delivered at home, along with some other random products on here. So,
Can you buy Nails brand cigarettes?
I don't see cigarettes. No.
Ooh.
Coffee,
Those
gum,
don't
hot
appear in Clerks, but
sauce.
they appear in later Kevin Smith movies.
You can get Buddy Christ hot sauce.
Buddy Christ, hot sauce.
You can get the Sorcerer's Apprentice pineapple habanero hot sauce.
That
S-
actually sounds really good.
Snoochie Boochies. Uh, shit, I just lost it. Where'd it go? Ah, there we go. Snoochie Boochies garlic habanero hot sauce. Yeah.
Ooh, I mean, I have one question for you guys.
Movies, hot chocolate.
Would you like some making fuck?
Salsa shark. You can get salsa shark on here.
Would you like some making fuck,
No.
Berserker?
Actually, yes. Wait, hold on. I'm confused. Maybe. What's the correct
Well,
answer here?
well,
May need more details on this arrangement.
okay, let me break it down. My love for you is like a truck. Berserker, would you like some making? Okay, what if I were to tell you that my love for you is like a clock? Would you like to check my phone?
Berserker.
Oh
Today is
boy.
National Scotch Whiskey Day, which I have been celebrating, folks, so I apologize.
Yeah, it's my excuse too.
Any other thoughts,
Uh,
questions, etc.?
I don't know if there's anything else I have other than, was it wrong to blow up all those innocent independent contractors on the second Death Star?
I mean, I think that the guy makes a good point. They knew what they were signing up for.
Hmm.
I feel like they just have to frame it that way for their own conscience, but
That's fair. I mean, here's my question though. Like, were they actually like really acting independent contractors? Because don't forget, this is an evil empire. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if they really had a choice. You know, if it was of their own accord that they were on that Death Star just trying to make money, like, yeah, that's on them.
Well,
But
now we know that prisoners were making it in a jail someplace, so
yeah, exactly.
it's all full circle now.
Oh man.
In the best Star Wars since Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Yeah.
I've gotten into so many fights with people over Andor in the
Yeah.
last like two
Dude,
weeks
Andor
online.
rules. I'm sorry, you're wrong. Andor is amazing.
It's not though.
But it
It's no, I don't have anything else over here.
Well, let
Yeah,
me
nothing
ask
for
you
me.
this question. Has either of you seen the original ending to Clerks that was shot, pun slightly intended, but then removed from the movie?
No.
I
Really?
don't think so.
All right. Well, let me tell you guys. The original ending of the movie Clerks, as filmed by Kevin Smith and attached to the film, after Rando leaves at the end of the movie, he throws the sign at Dante that had said, "Yes, I assure you we're open," and says, "You're closed." We see Dante still hanging out in the quick stop, and a random person comes into the quick stop because he has not locked the door yet. Said random person pulls a gun out and shoots Dante, killing him dead.
Jeebus.
The
Hmm.
person then Cody's checking to make sure I'm not making this
I
up.
am.
This is 100% true. I have seen it with my own two eyes.
Apparently, there's a
Uh,
Snyder cut on YouTube as well, but go on.
Dante is killed. This person steals money out of the cash register and leaves. And then I think after the credits, there's a shot where like Kevin Smith, who's supposed to be a character who's not Silent Bob, comes in and like sees Randall dead on the floor and just takes a pack of cigarettes and then leaves.
Jeez.
Surprisingly, people thought this ending was too depressing and totally different from the rest of the movie.
Hmm.
Wow.
Um, but I guess Kevin Smith thought that it was kind of the an ultimate twist on the fact that Dante kept saying he wasn't supposed to be there today.
Interesting.
Um, I also feel like that is indicative of Kevin Smith trying too hard to be kind of artsy and controversial.
Hmm.
Yeah, it
I mean,
ends at a good spot because you kind of are left with a little ambiguity, but you kind of also hope that maybe Dante is good to get his shit together.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I think that uh for the vast majority of audiences, a somewhat optimistic ending would be received much more than just like a okay, the day got even worse ending.
yeah, it just gets worse and worse, and then it gets the worst it could possibly
Yeah,
be.
yeah. You
I
suffered
mean,
all day, and your reward is death.
on the other hand, we wouldn't have had two more Clerks movies if it had
Oh,
happened.
they would have made it happen somehow still.
You know,
Yeah, that's dark. Wow.
it's pretty dark. Yeah, you guys should check that out.
Uh,
Audience, check it out.
I just watched that. Also, audience, the documentary Clerk apparently is available for free on Tubi. If no place else, you can purchase it other places as well.
Does the
But
title of the documentary have a period after it?
a great question, actually.
Clerk
It does not.
period.
Wait, Amazon does have it with a period,
What?
but Google does not have it with a period. Interesting. I just don't know. Apparently, there's also a documentary from 2016 released in 2019 called Shooting Clerks, which
Which is an
is
appropriate title given the original ending to the film.
this is the true story of how Kevin Smith made his film. Which seems like, yeah, actually, I can't tell if it has the actual actors or people acting as the actors.
That's weird.
I don't know what's going on with this at all. It has the actual people, but Kevin Smith was listed as playing Larkin Eve. Jason Mewes
What?
played Partymeister Lars. Brian O'Halloran is Alice Hammerman. Marilyn Gugliotti as Allie Tomlin. I don't know what's going on with this. Walter Flanagan, still comic book Steve. Okay, so that's from Secret Stash. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. There's a lot of shit in Kevin Smith's au revoir.
So it says it's a biographical dramedy, so it looks like it's not an actual documentary.
Ooh, Navy SEALs.
I'm so curious. Mark Frost as Kevin Smith slash Silent Bob. This is so weird. I have to find this now.
You're going to be on all of these. Oh, let's see.
Anyway, watch Clerks 2, everybody. It's a fun movie. Maybe don't watch Clerks 3.
That bad, huh?
It's not bad. It's just not Kevin Smith's best work.
I think we need to.
It does. I mean, it is kind of a it brings some finality to the Clerks franchise. I will say that.
Okay, is Rosario Dawson like grossly out of her element again?
Rosario Dawson is not in the movie.
Oh,
I
isn't she on the
know.
poster?
I don't think so. She's not in Clerks 3.
No, she's not on the poster. Yeah, okay. Wait, yeah, she's in the trailer poster.
Maybe she's in a flashback, but she's definitely
Oh,
not
okay.
actually in the movie.
Well, I think we can summarize this episode with the Rotten Tomatoes review of the movie Clerks. It was written here by Platty, the Parapus W. When this person writes, okay, I was reviewing Office Space and I guess I accidentally put it here. Oops. Never actually saw Clerks. We'll update this if I eventually do. 2.5 stars out of 5.
Okay. All right. I
That
mean,
comment wasn't even supposed to be there today.
uh,
It's literally true, yeah. That's good stuff.
37 comments in a row.
All right. All right, Joe.
Anyway,
We ranking this
well,
boy?
yes, so we are going to attempt to rate this movie not as the movie itself per se. I feel like we all have varying degrees of nostalgia, which would make it hard to rate it objectively. But we're going to attempt to put a number 1 to 10 on how well we think the movie Clerks holds up 30 years after its initial release. Who would like to kick things off?
Don't care. I
Cody,
can.
it's you. I'm
I
calling
had a
you.
number in my head, so I can go. Yeah, thinking about taking out the nostalgia factor and just purely watching this as much as I can as a new movie or like what somebody would experience as a first time viewer now. I do think there's actually still a lot of stuff in here that people would enjoy. You have to have kind of a warped sense of humor, I think, to enjoy most of the movie, period. So if you're somebody who's like, I like lawyer movies that are very dry, then you're not going to like this, period. But if not now, obviously, but like if I let my kids watch this even when they were older, I bet there would be parts that they find funny and still relatable as far as the characters and situations and the woes of relationships that are in here and
Poor cousin Walter.
just kind of um I don't know, I just feel like situations are semi-relatable and I still think the actors, especially for being non-actors, really did a good job with some of the dialogue delivery, particularly the timing and stressing some of the parts of the sentences they were saying as well for emotion. So for me, this still holds up fairly well. I will say personally, I thought watching it this time, it didn't hold up as well for me as I thought it would. But maybe that was partially because I watched it on my phone. I don't know. But I'm going to give this one a 2024 30th anniversary review score of 7.1 still.
Nice.
That's right.
Noish, noish, noish,
Okay.
smoking weed, doing coke. Brett, how about you?
Um, okay. So as you said, looking at this as how well does it hold up more than just a straight up how good is it movie. Um, also to reiterate, I saw this probably like I say like almost 20 years ago, probably at this point, if not more. And that was the last time I've seen it. So until I just watched it last night, to do this. So uh it literally for me is like there was a point in time and then a new point in time. But I would say like I like the concept. I like a lot of the humor, like the idea of just like this person and all these like wacky characters interacting with this person and just all the odd things that can happen in a day. Like I feel like those are like kind of timeless things that are going to hold up well. Um the concept of these people just having like odd thoughts and like these sociological kind of like dialogue things with each other. Um I think those are fun because they're like some of them are just like very like odd and just kind of like coming out of nowhere seemingly at times. Though I also feel like the dialogue itself is a lot of those are kind of like they're like personally warped to like to that character. Like they're not like universally relatable thoughts, I think. And so those don't necessarily hold up, but the concept of these conversations are fun. Um the humor is good. I think a lot of that still holds up well. Like it isn't outdated. It's a lot of just kind of like wacky comebacks and like um like saying something you thought someone else heard, and like those things don't go away. Um and so I think overall it does really hold up very well. Um it's a fun movie. It, as I kind of talked about before, it's a little hard for me to love it because the characters that we see so much, I had a hard time really relating to or liking. So like my overall score on the movie is not great. I don't consider this, for me personally, like it's not one of my favorite movies of all time. It's an enjoyable movie. It's, for what it was, the very low budget. It's a really cool movie. It's like this cult thing, but I don't know when the next time I'll ever see it again is. You know, it's not like one of those, I'm not going to plan to see it again. But I guess I would give it an overall, that mixed rating of like 7.0. Let's do that.
Higher than I was expecting based on your lead up there.
Yeah.
Well, like you say, the how well does it hold up kind of point of view really kind of
Yeah,
anchors that. So
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is a formative movie in my life. So I feel like I probably have the most nostalgia for this movie out of the three of us. Kind of hard to try to separate myself from that. But that being said, I mentioned a few things that kind of struck me this time around that are, minor issues that I never really noticed or that had never really bothered me before. Um, I mean, Brett, you said that like a lot of the humor has not really is timeless and has held up. One thing that struck me, being the filthy liberal that I am, is that there is some homophobic slash transphobic humor, which these days, like I don't think Kevin Smith would make those jokes these days. Like I don't think he's that person. It is very much a product of its time in that respect. And I mean, it's not really overboard in that direction. Like it's just those are things people would say back when this movie was made. Like
Yes.
in that respect, it hasn't necessarily aged so well. Again, I kind of felt like some of the writing was maybe a little overdone, and there are some little nitpicks here and there. But again, I've always loved this movie. I will definitely watch this movie again multiple times in my life. Um, so it's hard for me to really give it a score as far as like trying to be honest with how well I think it is held up. Um, I've been going back and forth over the course of this podcast, and since you guys have been talking about your scores, I think I will say the other thing is I think you have. I'm just going to keep talking. I'm just going to keep going. No, but I think we do have to talk. You do have to consider the circumstances that it was made under. I mean, it's insane that this movie was made for $27,000. Like that will probably never happen again. It's just kind of crazy that a movie was made for that little money and actually feels like a real movie. Um, anyway, all that being said, the score that I have arrived at for how well Clerks holds up after 30 years is a 7.5 out of 10,
Okay.
which again is not indicative really of how I feel through a lens of nostalgia or like personal feelings towards the movie. It's something that I will always love, but I think if I try to take a step back, there are certain things that have not necessarily aged as well as other parts.
I got to ask this joke because you just made me think of this with your budget comment, but and I guess it's a no, but you were a different person perhaps at the time period. This is also actually from the day we're recording this. This is going to be one day off exactly the 25th anniversary of the Blair Witch Project. which was also made for a shoestring budget, and I was curious if you've ever seen that.
I have not.
Would you watch it for a podcast?
Yeah,
Okay, keep it in mind.
I would.
I'd be curious for people to do a classic or crap on that or a 25th retrospective on that as well. That's a
That
pretty
could be,
divided
yeah.
movie.
I think that could be a fun classic or crap.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, great. Another idea for us.
Anyway,
yeah.
any other thoughts before we wrap this up?
Is the Quick Stop still in business?
Uh,
Could we go visit the Quick Stop today?
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it is, and I believe that Kevin Smith actually owns it now.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I don't know if
makes
it is,
sense.
but that would make perfect sense that he did buy that.
Yeah, I believe that is the fact. Looks like it is. Yeah,
Interesting.
I could be wrong about the Kevin Smith part, but I believe that Kevin Smith does own it, and it looks like it is still in operation. So.
I also want to mention, just because we'll never do a podcast on it, I'm sure the Clerks animated series,
Oh, it's so good.
one of the best gags I thought of any show ever was when they started episode 1 and they're like, previously on Clerks, and it was just a static. I thought that was so funny.
Oh man. Yeah, if you're out there and you are a fan of the movie Clerks and have not seen the animated series, it's fantastic. It features the voice talents of Alec Baldwin, weirdly.
Yeah, before he shot somebody.
Womp womp.
That joke
Well,
too
on
old.
that note, I've been Joe. With me have been Cody and Brett, and this has been another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagree. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
See you next time.
Hey, fondlings and fondlers. This has been another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing, your favorite podcast. It's most people's favorite podcasts, or at least so my mom tells me. You can check us out all over the place online at our homepage, www.fondpod.com or fondpodcast.com. You can also check us out across your social media sites, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your streamed podcast. Thanks so much.